Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers fall to the White Sox in the opener of the series. We're going to talk about Mitch White. We're going to talk about David Price, and then we're going to talk about Max Muncy and Justin Turner. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Dodgers listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings, so use code Locked On at checkout. This is Locked On Dodgers, and we want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day every day, and remind you that you can find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Make it easier on yourself and subscribe in all those places, and you'll never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Samperio of Chavez Ravine Fiends, and this is usually a two-host podcast, but Jeff Snider of Baseball Central has the day off today. He is catering to his wife for her birthday. So, what a great guy. But both of us are lifelong Dodger fans, but we've also spent some time on the other side in the locker room and in the press box. But either way, we're here to bring you smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. So let's talk Dodgers. Dodgers fell 4-0 to the White Sox in the opening game of the series. Michael Kopech on the other side went 6 shutout innings, and then the Dodgers weren't able to get to the bullpen either. On the flip side is what we're going to talk about first, and that's Mitch White not allowing any runs in his 5 innings, and then get into David Price, who did end up he wasn't charged with all 4 runs, but did allow all 4 runs. And then we'll talk a little bit about Justin Turner and his career with the Dodgers so far, and Max Muncy and what he did with OKC. But let's get into Mitch White. Mitch White is in the rotation as of now. I don't know how long it's going to last, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. But he had one of his better starts last night. He made it through 5 innings. He shut down the White Sox, and he's a guy that's continued to get better as as he's continued to be in the starting rotation. 5 innings, 2 hits, 5 strikeouts, 69 pitches. He's still getting built up, and I still don't think they trust him going through a lineup 3 times. But he's been a guy that has provided them with some quality innings early in the game so far this season, with this one being the most quality of them all. With Clayton, Kershaw, and Andrew Heaney due back soon, even if the Dodgers went to a 6-man rotation, Mitch White would not be part of that 6-man rotation. But what is his role going to be moving forward? But before we get into that, just how Mitch White has been so far this season, nothing stands out in terms of how he's getting things done. He doesn't have his everything that he has in terms of peripherals has been not standout. It's his strikeout percentage is the highest of his percentile rankings on Baseball Savant. He's in the 69th percentile, but everything else is a little bit lower than that. He still allows barrels. He doesn't get too much chase. He doesn't, his expected batting average and expected ERA and everything else. He's out pitching his peripherals a little bit, but he's also a guy that has maybe dealt with just a lot of things going on for him. I mean, last year coming up and down so many times, this year not really having a role, and now being thrust into a role where he's pitching every 5th day. And seemingly he has his moments. Every game he's had like an inning where he kind of loses it. This is the first time he didn't, and it's just, I think, who Mitch White is at this point. I've made the comparison to Ross Stripling before, and it's lazy in the sense of, a guy that came up and down. Ross Stripling early in his career came up and down a few times. He would make starts. He would be long reliever. He would be a regular reliever. But he is the next in that mold. Do I think he has the stuff to be, even an all star like Ross Stripling was, have an incredible first half? I think he does have that kind of stuff. I don't think we've been afforded the opportunity for him to show it. He's starting to show it a little bit now, but like I said, with Kershaw coming back this weekend and then Heaney in the next couple weeks, I don't think we're going to be able to see it, at least in terms of starting. Uh, when those guys come back, is Mitch White on this roster? And what I'll get into a little bit later on David Price contributes to that. But I do think that Mitch White has a spot on this roster, on this team. And I think if the Dodgers do decide on a 6-man rotation, when Heaney and Kershaw are back, along with Julio and Walker and Anderson and Gonsolin, is kind of the format we talked about, where you can expect 6 from your starting pitcher, 2 from another reliever, and then 1 for Craig Kimbrell or Daniel Hudson in the ninth, assuming you're winning the game. And I think that's where Mitch White can fit in. I think he's a guy that obviously can go multiple innings. He definitely can get 1 time through a lineup, can even get you 2 times through a lineup. So let's just say one of those starters falters or doesn't get you to 6 innings. Uh, then Mitch White would be a guy that can bridge that gap until the ninth inning if you need be. He's done it before, and I do think he has a spot. I think he's earned a spot to be on the active roster, even after all the starters are back, and even with the cut down to 13 pitchers in the middle of June. So yeah, Mitch White, I do think he believes or he deserves to be on this. I don't think he gains anything from going back down to the minors. I think, and the Dodgers have done this before, it's not a matter of fairness. I think it would be unfair for him to be sent back down to AAA if once everyone comes back. But also, I don't consider it out of the realm of possibility. But I do think that he'll be a guy that stays on. And even, depending how much they want to stretch out Kershaw, well, Kershaw's not going to be as stretched out. Uh, Mitch White's pitching on Tuesday, which means he would be available Sunday when Kershaw was maybe slated to pitch. So, it could be a piggyback situation, or even when Heaney comes back and Kershaw's more full strength, maybe they piggyback him with Heaney, or they just have him scheduled to throw that day. So I think Mitch White's staying on the roster. I think he deserves to stay on the roster. And I'm want to see him continue to. He's upped his slider usage. He's dropped his curveball usage a little, but his curveball's been his most effective pitch in terms of batting average, although he has allowed 2 home runs on that curveball, but he's got picked up 9 strikeouts, more so than the slider and fastball. And I think the curveball usage, I mean, his curveball is nasty. I think, it's one of those pitches where you can't throw it all the time. It does have the ability to hang a little bit. Uh, and now he's up to slider usage, and the slider, he's been able to, in terms of expected batting average and slugging percentage allowed, his slider's been his best pitch, and that's why he's upped it. But when he does go down into, a 2 inning or multi-inning reliever, all those 3 pitches play up, because the fastball will play up. He'll get the velocity up there. Uh, I think he sits 94. He could probably get it to 95, 96. The curveball with the spike and then the slider going across. I think he has a good arsenal for being that multi-inning reliever, and I think he's going to be good for the Dodgers, just like he has been. I mean, he's been a solid contributor so far in his young career, and I don't expect that to change. So Mitch White staying on the active roster once the other 2 starters are back, and playing a big role for the Dodgers here in the next few months. So that's what I'm going to go with. If he gets it down and I'm wrong, oh well, but that's what I think, and that's what's going down. Now, the next one we're going to talk about with his role on the team is David Price, who came in, and in the span of like 4 pitches, the game was 0-0, and then the game was 4-0, although he did inherit 2 runners. But what's David Price's role? Is his time with the Dodgers coming to an end sooner rather than later? We're going to talk about that. First, let's talk about Blue Nile, because whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose a diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. and their jewelers were then handcrafted for perfect engagement ring or other fine jewelry, and each ring is one of a kind. The best part about Blue Nile is that if you need trouble, if you're a guy that doesn't know anything about rings or doesn't know what your girl wants or whoever wants, or you just need a little bit of help, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7 via phone or chat to help you find the memorable gift at every budget. So make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Dodgers listeners can get $50 off purchases of $500 or more with this podcast exclusive agreement. It also includes engagement rings, so go out there and get it. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On at BlueNile.com. And don't forget that every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. So shop stress free and find your favorite piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. After you go to BlueNile.com, we have a little bit of a favor to ask from you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take long, and you can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. And we thank you in advance for your help. All right, let's talk about David Price. Like I mentioned, he came in with runners on first and third, allowed a double to former Dodger AJ Pollock that brought in 2 runs. Ended up allowing another double after that to make it 3-0, and then ended up giving up an RBI single after that. And it didn't take long for the Dodgers to go from tie game to down. And it got me thinking, like I mentioned, with the return of Kershaw, with the return of Heaney, is David Price's time with the Dodgers dwindling? Are we Have we seen the last or one of the last times David Price pitches for the Dodgers? And it's I don't think it's a completely I mean, it's definitely not based specifically on last night's game. Um, I we've been saying that David Price is probably not going to be a Dodger for long or much longer for a while now, but just with injuries and everything else that's happened, he's been able to stick around, and he's been effective since he came back from after battling COVID and being on the COVID IL. He's pitched effectively, and he's been really good up until last night. But you just start to do the roster crunch, and you look at the active roster right now, and you play the game where Kershaw's coming back. Yency Almonte has been a key part of the Dodgers bullpen. Is he going down? I would say no. Tyler Anderson, no, he's not going down. Walker Buehler not going down. Julio Diaz not going down. Tony Gonsolin not going down. You get into Phil Bickford. I don't believe he goes down. Justin Brule would be the one that makes sense because he has options. He's already been optioned, but he's been an effective reliever for the Dodgers all season, and a guy that has more of a future with his team, obviously, than David Price. You got Brusdar Graterol. He's not going down, despite struggles over the weekend against the Mets. Daniel Hudson, no. Evan Phillips, no. Alex Vesia, I don't believe so. And Mitch White, like I just mentioned, I don't believe he's going down. That leaves Caleb Ferguson as the only other possibility for being sent down. He's already been optioned, and he's still kind of recovering from Tommy John. Isn't quite back up to the Caleb Ferguson we remember and love from the 2020 season. But it's to that point where Price isn't pitching enough to show off that he's an asset, or at least not as a reliever. I don't think David Price is a guy who a lot of teams will be asking for as a reliever. His value would come from being able to be stretched out as a starter, pitching, at least built out to 5 innings. And I think he could be a decent fourth, fifth starter, a guy that's able to eat innings, give you 95, 100 pitches every time out. But he's not built up to that. And, nobody's going to trade for someone that they need to build up. So when it comes to reliever, yeah, he's been good in spots that they brought him in recently, but over the course of the last 2 years, just him as a reliever, he's not a guy that's in your top 5 relievers in a bullpen. He's a guy that's maybe in your bottom, you know, 3 to 5, depending how big your bullpen is in relievers. And there's not a lot of value in a guy that's your number 5 or 6 reliever. Yeah, on some teams he would be a top 5 reliever, but not teams that are thinking about competing for a World Series. Maybe teams that are thinking about competing for the playoffs, but not teams that are thinking about winning the World Series. So while I think the Dodgers would prefer not to cut bait, what they would try to, trade him, or they would try to pay down his contract in order to get maybe, some lower tier prospect. Um, I think David Price. I think this is the last week we've seen with the Dodgers. If it's not for Kershaw on Sunday, I think definitely when Andrew Heaney comes back, that it'll be the last time we see David Price. So, uh, he was a guy who was basically a throw in the Mookie Betts deal in order for the Red Sox to cut a little bit more salary and in order for the Dodgers to not have to pay as much a premium in prospects. He had 2020 opted out, but was there right there helping out, pay some minor leaguers. He was, very active in the community. He's been a guy that's been nothing but great in off the field. He's been, serviceable on the field, but I think it's the David Price era with the Dodgers is coming to an end in the next month. And yeah, no hard feelings. I'm not, feeling bad about it. I think it's just nature of the business, and nature of, what the Dodgers have and need. And the fact that the Dodgers, like I said, Brule and Ferguson are the two that could find their way going back down to OKC in order to keep Price on the roster. But at this point, is David Price going to be part? We talk about the Dodgers playing for and auditioning for October throughout the year. David Price is not going to be a factor for the Dodgers in October, even if everything went right. Like I said, he's a sixth, seventh, eighth reliever on your team, and in you don't necessarily, yeah, you're going to use those guys in the postseason, but you're not necessarily counting on those guys. And I do think the Dodgers have more, or have arms that are better than Price, better suited for bullpen and everything else. And I don't think, like I said, if Dave Price is not going to be your guy in October and you don't need him because you're hurting for depth, then I think there's no time better than the present. And let him go on his way. If it ends up being DFA and they find a trade, great. If it ends up being DFA and he clears and he can go sign with the team of his choosing, great. Uh, but yeah, I think, David Price is done, and it's not necessarily 100% performance based. It's partially performance based, but it's just partially just looking at his stuff, just looking at, the writing on the wall, just looking at what the Dodgers have in their bullpen. And, David Price is not a guy that fits there anymore. So, saying that, I wouldn't be surprised if David Price ends up being a key factor the rest of the season in October, just despite what I'm saying right now. But I wouldn't feel bad about it if that's what did happen. But I do think, yeah, if you are a fan of David Price, make sure to watch these next few games because it might be the last time he's pitching as a Dodger. So that's going to do it for this part. And talk a little bit about Justin Turner and an accomplishment he had in last night's game. Talk a little bit about Max Muncy and what he did for OKC Dodgers last night. And then a quick chat about the team up the 5 freeway and their manager. But that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Athletic Greens and either AG1 is something I've been using for a little bit now, and it's something that has helped out definitely in getting me some more energy. I am a guy who is up not early but early-ish for work. Working with people from the East Coast, up late watching Dodger games and recording this podcast, and you need a little boost. I'm not a coffee guy because I don't want to get addicted to caffeine, and I'm not anything else that I've been able to get by on natural and organic energy throughout my life. But little pick me up. Athletic Greens sent us a pack, wanted me to try it, and I've tried it, and I've continued to use it even beyond the trial that we had, and it's been great. But it doesn't just help with energy; it also helps with gut health. your immune system, and a bunch of different ways that it helps recovery, focus, aging, all those things. There's 75 high quality vitamins, and it's just one delicious scoop every morning in your water, in your protein shake, in your regular shake, whatever you do in the morning. The first thing you have before you even have breakfast, a scoop of AG1 in your life, and it's great for you. It's multivitamin, but you don't have to swallow anything. You don't have to chew anything. You don't have to have multiple things. It's all there in one easy to use scoop. And it's one thing you do every single day to take care of yourself. So check it out. And right now, to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. After you do that, you can head to betonline.net because they're your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find Locked On Podcasts there. You can find betting odds. You can find betting news. You can find stats. You can find different articles about different sports and different events going on. For all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, betonline.net is your choice, especially for this year's basketball championship matchup, NHL conference finals, MLB, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. So head to your laptop or mobile device, head to the website, learn more about the trends, learn more about the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Last segment coming up, and last night, Justin Turner picked up his 1,000th hit as a Dodger, and pretty incredible. Obviously, 3,000 hits is the accomplishment in for MLB for Hall of Fame consideration, all that, blah blah blah. But for Justin Turner, a guy who came to the team on a minor league deal after being non-tendered by the Mets, uh, and he continues to climb up and create accomplishments and do things with the Dodgers that I don't think anyone could have expected when he came here. It was hard enough to even expect him to make the roster, considering most of us didn't know who Justin Turner was back then or weren't fully aware of who he was. And now he's got 1,000 career hits with the Dodgers. He's the leader in a bunch of postseason categories. He's leader in hit by pitches, and he's been a mainstay in the lineup and in the Dodger community and in Los Angeles for a while now. So just wanted to give a quick salute to Justin Turner, everything he's been able to, do as a Dodger. And it's been, it's been fun to watch him. It's been fun to follow along with his career since coming to the Dodgers. It's been, great. I mean, I'm just gonna run through and look at his numbers since coming with the Dodgers since 2014. A guy who, I mean, I know we don't look at batting average as often, but just this is a guy who hits well almost no matter what. A guy 340 his first year, 294, 275, 322, 312, 290, 307, 278. Currently at 223 this season, but he's been able to provide, still be able to drive in runs, still be able to provide at different areas, and has gotten better after a very slow start. So a salute to Justin Turner, a salute to Marlon Byrd, who helped him with this swing, and a salute to the Dodgers for picking him up and throwing him a minor league deal. And, whether this is his last season or if he's got another one in him, just a salute to Justin Turner on a great Dodger career and becoming a Dodger legend in his own. Like I said, with all the postseason accolades, being in the postseason every year since he's been here, Justin Turner deserves all the flowers for sure. So just want to give Justin Turner those flowers on our end. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Max Muncy absolutely destroyed a baseball walk-off home run for the OKC Dodgers. And it's one of those, it's not, bittersweet's not the word because we haven't seen Max Muncy hit a ball like that in the major leagues. And obviously going down to AAA, he's facing lesser pitching, but he's faced not great pitching in the majors, or guys that would maybe be in AAA on another given night. Just they happen to be in the majors at that point. Whatever the case, guys that have maybe AAA quality, and he's yet to do that this season. And that ball was destroyed. So maybe the confidence getting back up. Maybe we'll see him back this weekend or early next week. But it was just good to see Max Muncy do that. I'm sure it felt good for him. He made a little change. Just got the goatee right now. I mean, his beard's starting to grow back, but he had just the goatee for once he went down there. So he's trying to fix things up. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, go OKC Dodgers posted it. I'm sure it's on them like the minor league side or whatever too. But absolutely destroyed a baseball. Got me excited for Max Muncy doing that back in the majors, and hopefully that's something we can see sooner rather than later. And it's one of those where, based on what we've seen from Muncy, his walk rate, everything else was still there. The eye was still there. It just was a matter of not hitting or not hitting with power. And with that swing, regardless of who was pitching, the elbow didn't look like it hurt. Hitting for major power and being able to hit the baseball. So I think it's a good sign that's something that he did, and I hope that we see it with the Dodgers coming up very soon. All right, last bit of talk here is the Angels were around first place in the AL West and holding down the first spot in the wild card just a few weeks ago. Uh, Now 13 losses later, and now a new manager later. It's just another reason to bring up conversation about manager, and Joe Maddon let go, relieved of his duties. Phil Nevin stepping in over there, but I remember there's been a couple of times Dodger fans have wanted Joe Maddon. The first time was around the time when they were before Andrew Friedman was here. They were looking before when Maddon before he signed with the Cubs and became their manager. It was around 2014, I believe. The people were clamoring for Joe Maddon, and at that time, even I think was on board with Joe Maddon train. Especially if he came over with Friedman and it was like a package deal. That didn't end up happening. I think we got the way better of that getting Friedman and Maddon instead of getting Maddon, not Friedman. So it worked out for the Dodgers that time. Then 2019, he was done or going to be done with the Rays or possibly done with the Rays. And that was the year the Dodgers lost in the NLDS, and Dave Roberts made questionable calls with Kershaw in Game 5 of the NLDS that year. And people wanted Maddon again, and I was very against it. Maybe on this podcast we talked about it, being very against it, and it just goes to show that as bad as Dave Roberts is, if you think Dave Roberts is bad, as bad as he is in your mind, he's the guy for this team, and it's not always a situation of the grass is always greener. Now, obviously, Maddon didn't have the talent on the roster, overall talent and depth on the roster that he would have had here, and would he have been successful still in the regular season? I believe so. I believe the Dodgers are built to, still be a playoff World Series contender, regardless of who's managing the day to day. But also, it's a matter of, fitting in with personalities. I don't think the Angels have the personalities per se. They just, like I said, a little bit of lack of talent. But it just goes to show that, the manager doesn't make the manager's going to add at most like 5 wins to a team, maybe 10 on a good year. But it's a matter of just being able to manage expectations, manage the clubhouse, manage everything else. And, Maddon has now been with 3 teams and, kind of worn out his welcome each time for different reasons and varying reasons. But I do think it's a matter of, grass isn't always greener. Dave Roberts is good. He does what the Dodgers need him to do in terms of managing the clubhouse, managing egos, and keeping everyone happy and communication and all that. And it just A salute to Dave Roberts. While we may not always agree with his decisions in games, I do think he's the right, perfect guy for this job for the Dodgers. And I don't think that uh, going after a guy like Joe Maddon would have benefited the Dodgers as much as keeping Dave Roberts did. So that's all on that end. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. If you need something else to listen to, check out Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan. He's covering the biggest stories around the league, and he's the number one daily league-wide podcast. Locked On MLB. Find it on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. You can find us wherever you get podcasts on the Odyssey app and YouTube as well. Searching for Locked On Dodgers. You can also find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. You can find Jeff on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. You can get a hold of us, DMs and any other accounts. You can get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or voicemail text 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.